What's going on, everybody? Marley Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. And today, folks, we are looking at the Avengers issue number 14. This issue was released in January of 1965, and the cover date is March of 1965. And, folks, today we are looking at the continuation of what previously happened in issue number 13 with the Wasp. She is seriously, critically injured, folks, and we are going to be on our, just waiting to see what the heck is going to happen with the Wasp. Is she going to die in this issue? Well, today's title is Even an Avenger Can Die. This is another classic issue of the classic original team, classic Marvel Silver Age. And so let's go ahead, folks, and get started. Also, the Avengers will be coming up against this alien race here. We'll learn more about them later on in this issue. And like I said, today's title is Even Avengers Can Die. And so, what does that mean? Does that mean that the Wasp is going to die? That's what we have to worry about here. And so, before we get started, let's give credit where credit is due. This issue is brought to you by Stan Lee, who edited this issue. We have Paul Lankin and Larry Lieber on the script, layouts by Jack Kirby, penciling by Don Heck, inking by Chick Stone, and the lettering by Sam Rosen. So here we have the Avengers, and they are in quite a bit of a hurry here. We have a very injured Wasp. What happened to the Wasp? Well, she was shot at, and that bullet lunged into her lung, as we're soon going to find out here. They rush into this hospital. They're asking for help. They are frantic here, as anybody would be with a loved one, especially Giant Man, who we know as also as Ant-Man. Well, during this phase of the Avengers team, he was known as Giant Man, and that's what he went by most of the time during this period. And we see here that Thor almost gives his civilian identity away here, as he says that she appears to have difficulty breathing. I suspected her lung has been injured. But then he's like, I almost gave my mortal identity away. I must be more careful in the future. And the doctor's like, how did he know that? Have you had medical training? And so the doctor says, why don't you all retire in the waiting room? It'll be half an hour before we know. And so 30 minutes go by. We have Giant Man, who is worried the most. Because why is he worried? Because this woman here, the Wasp, holds something very dear to his heart. He loves her. He's in love with her, and he doesn't want the Wasp to die. And so they're in the waiting room. Finally, the doctor comes out of the room here, and he says, I'm afraid I have some bad news. It's just as I suspected. The patient is in critical condition. He said the damage is very serious. It's only a matter of time before her left lung collapses completely. The right lung will then deteriorate also. To put it more precisely, gentlemen, the girl can't last more than 48 hours. Giant Man then loses his ever-knowing mind here, folks. And he's like, no, you incompetent fraud. You couldn't have read that x-ray right. She's going to live, I tell you. Wasp is not going to die. Say it. Say you can save her. Thor's like, unhand him. Get a hold of yourself, man. And I mean, look at Giant Man. He is just losing himself here. He's cracking up. And Thor's like, is there anybody that could help her? Any other doctor? And then the doctor's like, wait a minute. There is someone in Norway. His name is Dr. Svensson. He's known for his experiments in lung restoration. If any man can save her, he can. And so the Avengers look to Thor because he can travel across the world with his Uru hammer here faster than any other Avenger. And so they send out Thor here, and he's going to Norway, and he's searching for a Dr. Svensson. And he says, I've heard of that person before. And so thanks to his hammer, it detects any known person that they're looking for. He comes across Dr. Svensson. Dr. Svensson is in his lab looking like he's working on some kind of experiment here. He tries to tell Thor to leave here, but Thor ain't having any of it. He takes Dr. Svensson and he's like, no, you don't know what you're doing, man. You're making a big mistake. And so he brings him back to New York City where the Wasp is laid out on this table here, and we see that Dr. Svensson is not wanting to participate here, and he tries to run away, and Giant Man grabs a hold of his head. But instead of what we see here is this is not the real Dr. Svensson. This is an alien who is wearing a mask, and when his lungs are exposed to air here without that mask, he starts to pass away here and he dies. And so the Avengers were not able to get any information from this alien on where their whereabouts are and where he can find the real Dr. Svensson, because these aliens have kidnapped the real Dr. Svensson. And so now Giant Man is definitely, I mean, he breaks down and starts to cry. He's like, all our hope is gone here. It was our last hope. He starts pounding on the ground. The Avengers try to console Giant Man. He says, Iron Man says, we got to use every power at our command to find those aliens. If they're anywhere on Earth, we'll track them down. And so that's what their main mission here is, to find those aliens. So we have Giant Man who reverts back to Henry Pym here. He goes to his lab and he's going to use his ants to try to track down these aliens. We have Captain America. He goes to the Teen Brigade with Rick Jones to find if they could find any trace of these aliens. We have Tony Stark as Iron Man. He shoots up this Geiger counter missile to find out if he could detect any alien source on the Earth. And they just come up zero here, folks. They could not find these aliens at all. But meanwhile, we see here that they get in their Avengers Quinjet here, and they're going to be flying around just trying to detect anyway, and they realize, maybe that's the answer. Maybe the reason why Thor's hammer is pointing to the North Pole is because that's where they're at. So they're going to travel all the way to the North Pole. It is freezing to death, folks. They start pounding on the ground. They think they must be underground, folks. And so what we see is by pounding on the ground gives way and they start to fall down here. But luckily, we see that they all catch each other and they don't get in any harm. And this is where they discover these aliens. And they have these ice guns and they're trying to stop them. And so now the Avengers have to defend themselves here as they're fighting against this alien race, this unknown alien race. Giant Man, using all his strength here. He's in a big hurry. All the Avengers are in a hurry because these 48 hours are going to be used up at any moment here, folks. And so they come across this alien city. I mean, this is amazing that this alien culture was able to build this city without any human recognition. But all of a sudden, we see that the Avengers are then zapped by a couple of these aliens here, and now they're being brought before their leader. And this is where we're going to learn the identity of these aliens. They are called the Collusions, and for ages they dwelt peacefully in a far distant galaxy. But then, in the ever-changing course of cosmic events, an interplanetary war broke out with this other race of aliens. And because of all this, and these aliens destroyed their planet, they sought refuge on the Earth, and they have been hiding from these other aliens this entire time. And their biggest mission here, by using Dr. Svensson, is to allow them to breathe without having to die from the Earth's oxygen. So Dr. Svensson here, the real Dr. Svensson, helped this alien race learn how to breathe on the Earth. And that's why they don't want to give up Dr. Svensson. Now, Thor is not going to have any patience here, and he says, did you think you could overpower Thor, Rash One? My molecules are not mortal. You could not freeze me like the others. And so finally, he gives the word to unfreeze the other Avengers. And now, folks, this is where things get very interesting, as there's a big battle that takes place here, and the Avengers are going to have to get to the real Dr. Svensson here as time is running out, and they continue to battle epic stuff drawn by Don Heck, and we have Jack Kirby doing the layouts too. Awesome stuff from the Avengers, Thor, Captain America, Iron Man. Doesn't get any better than this. Finally, the real Dr. Svensson shows his face here, and he says, "Stop! Cease this senseless battle immediately. There is no need to continue the carnage. I am Dr. Svensson. I insist that you halt your attack, or I will no longer serve you." So the aliens have no other choice. Giant Man says, "Doctor, listen. There's a girl in America. She's dying. Only you can save her. Every second counts. We traveled halfway around the world to find you. We can't fail now. You must come back with us immediately." And so Dr. Svensson's like, "You don't understand how powerful they are. They have weapons which can destroy all of the earth in an instant, but they're not interested in us. They simply want to hide from those who are searching for them." Well, we see that the ones that are searching for them are going to actually detect them on the earth. And this is where this alien race now is going to try to attack these aliens. They get a couple of the aliens who have been protecting Dr. Svensson, and now they have no other choice but to go to war with this other alien race who has been searching for them this entire time. We see that the leader finally says, "Okay, we kept our promise while we could. Now the decision is no longer ours. Besides, in an intergalactic war such as this, one planet means nothing." And so we see that these aliens are going to leave the Earth here and allow Dr. Svensson to go with the Avengers. Thank goodness. And so they go through this little space warp here, and it transports all the Avengers back to New York City, where Dr. Svensson now can look at the Wasp here and try to find out a way to save her before her lung completely collapses. So time passes away, and we see that the Avengers are still in the waiting room, waiting to hear back on the results. Dr. Svensson comes out, and we're going to soon see just exactly what the heck is going to happen. Here's some of those aliens I was talking about who are going to go up to war against the other aliens here. And so let's go ahead and finally figure out what the heck happens. We also have an appearance of the Watcher here. He makes an appearance here. He says, "Two alien races about to battle for survival with Earth as their battleground. It would have meant the end of mankind if they fought on the Earth. But the human race has now been spared because of one dying girl." So maybe because the Wasp was dying, this scenario worked out in the Earth's favor. And so Dr. Svensson finally comes out of the operating room. The Avengers longing to hear good news, and like, "Well, tell us, Doctor. We have to know." And Dr. Svensson says, "The operation was successful. The girl will recover. That is good news, folks. Looks like here, folks, that the Wasp is going to survive, and she is still going to be a member of the Avengers." So that's some good news, folks, and that's how we are going to end this epic issue number 14. Coming up next, we'll be looking at issue number 15. But before then, go ahead now and drop a like on this video, comment down below what you liked about this story, and subscribe if you have not, and I will see y'all in the next one.